You are listening to Spotlight Sessions with Justin Bamforth. The program provides an inside look at the creative field through exclusive conversations with industry professionals. Every episode is recorded live each month in the Adobe Creative Career Discord. Check out the show links to learn more and join for free, or visit adobediscord.com and click on Adobe Creative Career. This episode was previously recorded before a live listening audience. Alba Ceide is an illustrator, a comic book artist, and educator practitioner from Spain. She has a bachelor's in fine arts and a master's in art education. She's been working in London since 2012 in a variety of professions, including as a graphic designer, a drawing teacher, an imaging specialist, a photographic technician, and a technical instructor in digital print. But it wasn't until 2017 that Alba started exploring this world of comics and decided to pursue it professionally. In 2020, she created her first fully formed comics, which eventually became part of Earth Blues, a series of futuristic and fantasy comics inspired by climate change. A year later, she participated in her first comic anthology with her comic The Lucky Horn, and in 2022, she was selected by the UK comic book news site Broken Frontier as one of their 6 to watch artists. She also published her first long-form comic, Salamanca Blues, but Alba is currently working on 2 graphic novels and is also working as a technical instructor in digital print at the Royal College of Art in London, where she is joining us live today. Alba, Superwoman, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this event. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. I mean, you have such a wide background in a variety of creative fields, but why comics? What is it about the comic world that draws you into it?
There are various reasons. The strongest probably is because it's about stories. And I always love telling stories. I used to write stories and I also used to draw them. And at some point, I decided to put those things together. So comics is a very special medium because it's very accessible for both artists and readers. So on the one hand, for artists, it's although there is a lot of work involved in making a comic, it's less complex than making a film, for example. So you can actually, it's just like making your own film. Basically, you design your characters, your stories, you can develop it. You can also be in charge of the whole process from idea generation to actual distribution if you want. So you can actually sell it yourself, contact shops, print it. So you can be completely in charge of everything. And then there are some things very special, like for example, the specifics of the language that I like. For example, a comic is a mix between words and images. And sometimes that combination of things, it gives you more chances to experiment and also to visually narrate things, events, situations that are only possible in comics because you have the images, the text, you have graphic design elements, you can play with the panels, compress the timing, expand it. And also there is something that I like about comics that is the reader. For example, the reader, when you make a comic, you are making it for the reader. And the reader, it's something that is reading on their own time, on their privacy, at their own pace. And that gives them time to reflect. So they can, you have the chance, like a creator, to comment on certain issues that worry you and that are actually, the reader is possibly knows those issues, or you can expand on them. The reader can comment, can reflect. So it's a very, very special medium. I see it like very complete. And like an artist, it fulfills many creative disciplines. It's just a great, great medium.
Yeah, it's interesting because, here in the US, the comic book world is a big business. And because of the popularity of the Marvel and DC cinematic universes, those comic movies bring in even more attention to the comic books themselves. But let me ask you this, Alba. Are comics just as popular in the Spanish market, or is it more of a specific audience in Europe that is drawn to comics?
No, I think they are popular in many, many places. In Spain, they're really, really popular. There are many good artists and quite a big audience. Comic festivals, there is one in possibly every community of the country, a very large festival. Then there are the self-publishing ones, so there is a lot of activity. Then possibly in Europe, perhaps is France and Belgium, the places that maybe are even stronger. But then Italy is very strong in comics too. I think yeah, there are popular everywhere, I think, and also with all sorts of styles, all sorts of different types of stories. That's the thing, it's a medium that it welcomes all different types of creators and also creators that they come from different backgrounds. Well, in America, yeah, as you mentioned, superheroes is quite strong, but also underground comics are very, very strong. Then in Europe, then the author comics kind of graphic novel, there may be a bit more important. Here in the UK, the autobiographies, they're quite trendy too. So each place there has slightly different trends, but they are because today anyway with communication everything is a bit joined together anyway.
You're in London, but are your comics specifically based for readers in Spain, or are they geared for, a wider market?
No, therefore a wider market. So I actually, when I write them, I normally make them in English and Spanish and Galician language. Galician because I'm from the north of Spain, where we are bilingual. We speak Spanish and Galician language. And I'm quite active in my city. There is a large comic festival and also a self-publishing one, Autoban, where I sometimes take part too. So that's why I create comics in various languages. And yeah, there are the stories. For example, there is one Salamanca Blues, which is a story that starts in Spain. It's based in the city of Salamanca, but the actual story is universal. Anyone can read it and understand it without the need of knowing that the city is specifically for Spain. It doesn't matter. They're universal stories.
You mentioned storytelling, but why are you making comics? I mean, what makes it such a special process for you specifically? Is there like one part that you enjoy more than the others?
I think it's the whole thing, the combination. I think it's a very complete medium. That's one thing that I like because it covers from story development, character designs. Like an artist, you need to understand the art fundamentals, so to have a sense of scale, hierarchy, contrast, anatomy, perspective, knowledge of graphic design, typography, print design, editorial layout. So you need to have such a variety of and diverse set of skills that if you're an artist, yeah, for example, I worked in different fields. I studied fine arts, I did a bit of animation, studied like a photographic technician. So I have a bit of variety of roles in my background. So comics is like it puts everything together, plus the storytelling and the narration of stories and the drawing. So it's just like like a whole set. And one maybe something that I really enjoy is the part of sketching the story. That's something that I really love that part. For example, at the beginning, you have the script. It can be, well, I work with my own scripts, but I'm also working with a writer that has given me a script for a graphic novel. And what I really like is to take that script and to sketch it into the panels, to sketch the panels, to visually develop that and to create the characters. So all the what we would call in an animation film, the pre-production. The pre-production is probably the part that I most enjoy and I think is highly creative.
So this question comes in from Mr. Flickbeast, who's listening from Pakistan, but he wonders, where do you get the motivation or the ideas, of a new design or a new concept before beginning working on the comic?
Well, that's a good question, but I think they just come on somehow. So there are various ways. There are different ways. For example, sometimes the stories that I write, sometimes they are triggered by events. For example, ecological, environmental events. But sometimes they are triggered by something else. For example, I'm part of a comics group which is called Whip Comics. It's based in London, and we do anthologies. So every year we do an anthology, and we set up a theme. For example, last year was change, and we need to do so. We were in last year anthology. We were around 30 artists, and we had to develop each of us a story based on that theme, change. So that was a trigger point. So with that word change and with all the connotations that it has, you need to develop something. So that can be a starting point too. For some people in the group, some people struggle a bit to come up with a story. So that working with a theme is a great way to project a story. But at a time, for me, most of the time, perhaps are a mix between the news, things that worry me, and then because I like fantasy, science fiction, a bit of stylized and exaggerated situations, I mix all of that together, and then stories start to come. Then I start writing notes, short notes, and researching online too about other types of news, information, and then the things start taking shape. And sometimes the final story to develop in a comic sometimes is very different to the initial story where it started. That can happen.
Walk us through the steps to making a comic. What's that whole process, that those steps to making a comic look like?
Yes, so first I will say, yeah, for example, when I do them, first is all when I have, yeah, like a small idea or something I want to develop, first I start writing those notes, sketching characters, possible location, very rough notes and loose. And then at some point, when I have quite a bit of material and research done, then is when I go to the studio and I take a seat, and then is when I work properly on the script, on the story, on the script. When I refine the ideas, reject ideas, reshape them, I develop the final characters and everything until I have a script. Then it will come the stage of storyboarding the pages. So yeah, to put, say that you are making a comic, I don't know, 10 pages, for example, or 50 pages, whichever amount, or even two. So you make sketches of those pages, loose sketches, just to understand the distribution of the panels. On that sketchy moment, I include all the balloons and graphic elements, even if they're a bit rough, but just to make sure that everything fits. Then when you have that, you go to sleep, you read it again. Like with any project, you need to give it a bit of time to see it with fresher eyes. And then you make the corrections, adjustments, and then is when you start making the final drawing, refining those shapes. Then after the drawing, for example, sometimes I do it on paper with blue pencils, and sometimes recently I've been doing it digitally, sketching in Photoshop, basically to be able to change things quicker and don't yeah, and just be able to, I don't know, to flip things, and it's a bit easier and quicker. Then after the drawing, normally comes a stage called inking, where you can do it in digital inking, you can do it by hand with brushes and ink. And this traditionally it was to make more visible the lines of the drawings so that they have more contrast when the comics were printed. And nowadays I'm doing mostly this part digital in Sketchbook Pro. And then once I have the clean line art in a sense, then it comes the coloring. In this case, I mean, I do the coloring in Photoshop. I use flat colors and then cell shading for the shadows, and then with some light effects. And then after that, you start, of course, editing all the graphic design elements, all the text, all the editorial layout. Then it comes the print design, making sure that the bleeds, crop marks, everything comes to place nicely. And then talking to the printers and distributors, and then yeah, after that, well, depending each artist which way is going to output the comic. So it's a very, very complex, but it's one step at a time, and it gets done.
How long does it take to develop this from your mind to the person holding it or reading it on the screen?
But it's very variable. Depends mostly on it's about the length of the comic. For example, the graphics novels that I'm doing, they're quite long. The one I'm doing with the writer is 71 pages, and I'm still working on it. We've been working kind of like 1 year, more or less, but have in mind that I'm also working at college. So I don't do it like full time. Full time, I will say half of the time, maybe 6 months, if you do it kind of intensive. Yeah, more or less, I will say, I don't know, you do 1 page a day. If it's, well, one page between, I don't know, maybe 2 days if it's including coloring. Depends if it's a very complex page and it has, I don't know, lots of details and many things in the background. Maybe you need to extend it a bit more. Depends a bit on the color that you are doing too, if it has many effects. So it's a bit variable. And also, yes, if you have other works or projects, then yes, you need to spread it over more time.
As you're talking about, a comic book isn't just one person, right? It takes the team of people, a writer, a penciler, an inker, a colorer, an editor. What's it like collaborating with all of those creative people in the room? Is it frustrating? Is it challenging? Is it fun? What has been your experience collaborating?
Well, my experience was so collaborating. For example, I make the comics that I've done so far that you can find online. Those ones I've done them all myself. So I'm the whole author, so the writer, uh, drawing artist, inking. So I'm doing the coloring and everything. But now I'm doing one which is with a writer, and that's a great collaboration. I'm enjoying it. So basically, he wrote the script, and then I'm the one doing all the artwork. So it means that because he wrote the script, so basically he was in charge of developing the story, structuring the story, and doing the historical research. This is a historical graphic novel based in the 1930s in Germany. And then when he sent me the script, then I'm in charge of making all the artwork, which is the developing the characters, the locations, doing the visual research. So I also need, of course, to find out many images about the 1930s, the dresses, the cars, the buildings, signs in the street, how they were, and then put all of that on paper. And in this case, I'm also doing the drawing, the inking, the coloring, the text. So we are only two. I know, for example, in America, it's more common to have a very large team. If, for example, there is some people when they collaborate that they talk more to each other. There is a constant conversation, but in some markets that when they produce comics that have lots of series, sometimes there is not that constant communication. It's a bit more like a freelance job, very quick in terms that you receive the script, you draw it, you send it to the inker just ink it, and there is not that much communication. So it depends a bit on the market, the type of comic, how it's going to be published, the deadlines. In the experience that I have with the writer, I do talk a lot with him, and I'm sharing constantly the work and approving it by different stages. So, for example, he sent me the script, I sketch a few pages, and then I send them back to him. He checks them, he sees if everything is all right, he may give me some suggestions. I may reshape the sketches based on those suggestions, add something. Then I do the inking. I send the inking stage. He needs to approve it, and then I do the coloring. And then yes, so we have a constant chat basically. Or when there is something that I spot about, I'm not sure about this building in this, I don't know, this museum. I cannot find it online information about this building in the 1930s. So then there is a bit of information between both. So it's very nice actually because it's like making something together. So yeah, you are joining two different creatives with different skills and making out something together. So it's very nice.
Now, do you go about finding a writer, or do they find you?
In this case, he found me. He found my comic Salamanca Blues in Spain. So this is a writer from Spain, Oscar Losada. He's a journalist too, and he published before his first comic with different artists, and he liked the experience a lot. And then he find my comic Salamanca Blues in a comic shop of my hometown, Coruña, in Alita Comics. And he liked it. He liked the style, and also that I was touching some ecological issues that they were matching some of his projects too. And then he contacted me, and yeah, during a comic fair that I was in the city, we meet, we have a coffee together, we chat a bit about these projects, and yeah, we start working in this. He had a couple of stories for me, and we pick up this one, which is a historical biography. I cannot release much information yet, but it will be at some point next year at the beginning. I will be posting some information. And yeah, so basically he found me, which was, yeah, was very, very nice.
Is it easier to work with a writer instead of writing it yourself?
Well, well, and the shorter the shorter way, I suppose, is that yes, it's easier because well, you open the email, the script is there, so it's very it's very nice actually. But yeah, it's just a different it's just a different experience. For example, the comic that I'm doing now for Head Blues is a story that I'm developing myself. But I have to say that I'm enjoying a lot working like an artist only. So writing, sorry, like an artist only drawing the comic of someone else. It's true that I also like the story and it's touching me the story, so I'm emotionally involved on somehow. So yeah, at the moment, yeah, I decided to go ahead with the project because it was something that I liked. That is very important to feel motivated. Perhaps if it's a story that you're making it only just to get paid and you are not very there is no motivation, then probably then it becomes more difficult. But if you manage to pair with someone that yeah, that has a bit your same or similar set of mind on certain aspects, then it becomes a lot easier and nicer.
Can I ask you, how exactly does a comic book artist get paid? What does that payment process look like? Do they pay you up front, or do they wait until you sell the comic and then you get royalties from that?
It depends. There are various ways. So, for example, there are sometimes they are paid per page. Sometimes there is like a fixed amount that maybe there is a percentage before and a percentage after. Then there might be royalties. In this case, yeah, he's working with funding too, with funding from local funding from Spain. And then yeah, so we agree yeah, an amount that I will get like an artist, and then that's what I will get paid. So basically it's a bit like in any other creative field when you are freelancing. It's there are different, slightly variations, but more or less it's an agreement that you need to reach with a person or organization sometimes. When it works with, in this case, because it's a project between two, so I'm kind of like freelancing. But if you are perhaps working for a company with characters, for example, if you work with Marvel, you don't own the creative license of those characters. So in that case, I don't think you're gonna get royalties of that. You just get the money per page or per amount of pages that you are doing. But if it's your own work, like for example, in Europe, there are the authors, they work more in kind of graphic novels where they are the authors, or maybe there is the work of two people involved, like I'm doing now. So then after the publication, and your wages or whichever you agree, then after that, yeah, then there are some royalties if the thing, if it's successful, then it gets reprinted. So then it comes like it will be a book, a novel, of any other piece of literature.
For those of you who are just tuning in now, we're speaking with Alba Ceide, who's an illustrator, a comic book artist, a multi-talented individual, and she's got a lot to teach us here about the comic book process, among other things. This question comes in again from Mr. Flickbeast. He asks, what are the art movements that you mostly like and get a reference from in your work?
The art movements. So I always loved classic paintings. Like I like a lot the work of painters like Velázquez, Goya, and Miguel Angel. And I particularly like the Renaissance, and from the Renaissance, the part from where Michelangelo was from, which is a movement called Manierism. The Manierism, it was famous to use basically the body shapes. The body, he will turn the bodies a lot, and they are very exaggerated movements. And then I like a lot that type of figure drawing, anatomy. Then I also like animation a lot. There is, for example, Disney classic Disney. I quite like it. Pixar, Looney Tunes. I really love the Looney Tunes, and then many other comic artists that I admire, like Tanino Liberatore, which actually his style is, yes, a bit similar to, well, Michelangelo in that sense. Milo Manara. Yeah, there are a lot of artists. I also like expressionist a lot, and impressionism too. Like painters like Van Gogh, they really inspire me. But I will say, yeah, the Manierism from the Renaissance. I really like it.
What about specifically some of the comic book artists and writers that are some of your favorites?
There are quite a few. I will say, for example, Will Eisner, that I love his stories. When I discovered him, I actually didn't know I wanted to make comics. I was just it was one of the first comics one of the first artists that I started reading. I discovered it in a library, and I really like it. I like a lot Frank Quietly. He has done, yes, some comics with Grant Morrison. He has a comic I really enjoy called Flex Mentalio, I think it's called. Is about like a superhero, but a bit unusual superhero. Then I really like Guy Delis. He has some stories like Pyongyang, very good. Then the Spanish authors like Paco Roca. Then there is one that I love. There is a comic called Black Sad. It's a series of comic now, and I absolutely love both the storytelling and the art. They're amazing. They're from Diaz Canales and Guarnido are the names. There are quite, yeah, there are many. There is another artist I like, Albert Montes. I like him a lot. There is some classic ones like Magnus, which is an Italian artist that I'm studying now. How he does the inking of the comics, because that's the other thing. You always discover more artists. You look into something else to learn, so you are constantly evolving and learning and researching new material, new artists. But there are many.
It's funny because you mentioned Frank Quietly and Grant Morrison. I actually have the first 5 issues of All Star Superman next to me on one of my comic short boxes here, and I know that has some Frank Quietly artwork, and it's very unique. I've never seen any artwork like his style.
He's really, really good. He's very. He draws so well, so solid. The anatomy that he has, you can see that is absolutely. He has an absolute understanding of the bodies and the movement. It's very special. He draws in a very special way. So basically, there is a documentary about him on YouTube. You can find it on the BBC. I think it's 20 minutes. And basically, he first sketches in Photoshop, and then he prints the sketches, and then he draws on top with a micromina pencil. And then that is his ink in the micromina pencil. That's why the inking is so thin and subtle. It's a very special process. Very skilled artist.
Going back to your style, though, Alba,
Mhm.
how would you describe your specific art style?
I will say perhaps it's a bit stylized human figures, stylized cartooning. There is actually, when talking about influences, a very big influence for me I didn't mention, and one of my favorites is Asterix and Obelix from Uderzo, who I consider one of the best artists. Yeah, so his style it has a big influence on me too. So I will say, yeah, I like a lot when I draw in characters. I really like exaggeration, exaggerate facial features, positions. I take a lot from animation too. Yeah, so stylized, I will call it.
Let's talk about some of your specific work. Let's talk about Earth Blues. What is that about?
Yeah, so Earth Blues is yeah, it's a project. Basically, it's a series of comics. It's a collection of comics that they kind of explore how life would be on Earth in the very distant future after climate change and different environmental disasters, and also various human disasters have happened. So, how would be the life of humans on Earth? So, I'm kind of making different and separate stories settled on distant futures. For example, one of them is Salamanca Blues, and another one is for Head Blues. So Salamanca Blues, the story happens in Spain once it has become a desert. So I'm playing a bit with the issue of the desertification and global warming, and I kind of exaggerated a lot to magnify the issue and develop the landscape of central Spain, which is called Castilla, like a desert, desolated desert. And in that desert, there are giant lizards and giant insects. Life is very hard. And there is in the ruins of a city that is semi buried in the desert called Salamanca, the city. There is a community of people that it has evolved kind of worshipping these giant lizards. They think that they are gods, but they're actually ruled by a group of oligarchs that they promote this superstition. So the story starts with three characters: a hunter of insects, a woman, a foreigner, a mysterious foreigner that speaks in a different language. In the comic, actually speaks with graphic elements. There are no words on the dialogue of this character, and an ex-priest that they all met in prison, in jail, and they're going to escape the city to try to find a better place to live. And they're going to escape the desert. There are creatures, and well, they will find some events in the escape. And then there is the other one for Head Blues is the one that I'm doing now, which is a separate story, but also in the future, but in Venice, in the city of Venice. So in the future, many years, I put that the water levels have rise a lot, and many cities have been inundated. But the city of Venice have adapted to the changes, has managed to adapt and even take advantage of it, and it has survived. People is living underwater with some sort of helmets, and then the air is very polluted, but they live everywhere. They're fine, and it has become like a dystopic city and decadent, a city where only rich people lives, and poverty is illegal. So then the story starts with a character called Armando who likes to socialize with the most powerful in Venice, and he is very arrogant and loses all his money in a casino. And then he becomes an outlaw and then is prosecuted by the Carabinieri, or the Carabinieri of the future, which is the police in Venice, in a way of saying. And then he has to escape, and he will find refugee in front of Venice, where in a place called Marghera, where there are mutants and some refugees that, like him, had to escape at some point. It's a very welcoming community, but he doesn't like it there. He is still very arrogant and selfish, and wants money, wants to recover his power. Yeah, in this story, I play a bit with environmental issues, a bit right-wing powers rising, so manipulation of public opinion. So there are social social justice. So there are various issues. Yeah, it's gonna be around 100 pages. Yeah, so next year it will be coming.
Let's talk about what it was like to participate in a comic anthology, where there are several different artists and stories all contained in just one book. What did you contribute to that anthology?
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a fantastic experience. I've done quite a few. So basically, as I said earlier, I'm part of a comic group called Whip Comics, and every year we do one anthology, and it is absolutely fantastic. So we've done one this year actually. We just finished the crowdfunding because we are publishing it with the crowdfunding on Kickstarter. So it's fantastic for various things. On the one hand, you are contributing, making your own story. So that helps you also to have a deadline there to come up with something. But it also, one of the most important things is that it helps to build community. And that's very important in comics, or in different creative industries anyway, because you're working with other artists, and then you are giving feedback to other one's story. We talk a lot on Discord. We have like with Adobe, we have a Discord where we just share our work, we comment. So it's good, for example, to create something complex, to overcome challenges, to receive and give feedback. So it's very nice. And then also to be in touch with artists and writers that have different styles and also different perspectives. So it's just a very nice experience. It helps you also to reach a major audience that otherwise on your own it would be more reduced. So participating in anthologies, they have opened not only my eyes to different types of storytelling, if not, it put my work in the eyes of other readers.
Yeah, I'm just posting some links to the chat so everyone can take a look at two of those, Moonfall and the Lucky Horn. So those are pretty good pieces right there. How often do you practice drawing? And how do you practice it?
Well, drawing, I practice it literally every day in various forms. So one, well, I draw comics every day. I advance in my comics in the weekends, full days, and if not in the evenings after work, all the time. But then I practice live drawing and also I practice it every day. So I always carry with me a notepad and pencils, markers, watercolors, refillable watercolor pencils, and I draw anywhere. So, for example, to go to work, I go in the underground. I have 2 hours of commute, one to go, one to come back home, and I draw passengers. I draw other people on the tube. I do lots of portraits. In fact, I've been doing it for so many years already that I have an ongoing project called live drawing on the London Underground. And yeah, it's just a very huge, large collection of drawings, mostly pencils with crayons too, Conte pencils. They are drawings that I do in, I don't know, the time varies a bit, but very fast, maybe from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. Sometimes with color pencils, maybe it take me a bit longer. And they are mostly just the people that is sitting in front of me. It's something I really like to do also because it's a way to practice, also to train your eye to analyze better shapes, to get quicker, to stylize more figures. And since I do it so often, I notice a huge improvement on the quality of my drawings for the comics or other illustrations. And also speed. I gain a lot of speed too. And it's a lovely activity to do. And with that, I've done an exhibition too at the Royal College of Art. And then I edited a book with these sketches. And yes, it's a lovely, lovely activity, life drawing.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. And I just posted that in the chat so you could take a look at it. It's an incredible book of sketches there. I also forgot to post another one of your comics that was published in the anthology in 2023 called Jacqueline's Jacket.
Yeah, Jacqueline Jacket.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
posted that there so you guys could take a look at that. You're doing a lot of work with, with fine art tools, the typical tools of the trade, right? Pencils,
yeah.
ink, all that. But what about electronically? Like, do you use like any Adobe tools, or are there specific Adobe tools that you enjoy working with?
Yeah, I use Photoshop. I use Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. That's my set. Photoshop a lot, but like a lot every day. For sketching, I do a lot of sketching, quick digital paintings, which I like a lot, and also the coloring of the comics. Apart from that, at work, I also use it for imaging retouching, preparation of files for printing. Then in design, I use it a lot. Is what I use to do the editorial layout of the comics. I do it on InDesign. And I also use Illustrator. When it's for the comics, I use it sometimes for the graphic elements like onomatopoeia. When I want to, for example, deform them a lot. It's true that you can deform them in Photoshop, sometimes like a shortcut I do, but when I want the shapes to be sharp and be able to change the size, then I normally do that in Illustrator. And the good thing, because you can link them, I work a lot with the links. So for example, when the way I work, so I have my InDesign document with all, normally I have it set up like facing pages so that I see the two pages. And then I put there my pages. I drag the Photoshop files actually. So like then, for example, when I'm sketching in page 2 and I'm in Photoshop doing the sketch, then it always updates in the InDesign file. And then when I finish the sketch and I do the final drawing, I just relink in the InDesign page that file. I relink it and then it just appears. So it constantly updating. So I use a lot the Creative Cloud, the Adobe fonts. I use them. The fonts that I use for the comics, they are actually from Adobe fonts. So yeah, the whole Creative Cloud is very useful. And then I use of course Premiere and After Effects. Sometimes I do some short animations, sometimes from the comics, sometimes not from the comics, just for other things. And yeah, and I use Premiere and After Effects.
Ashraful from Bangladesh asked this question: are there any animated versions of these comics?
There are of one of them, yes. So the Lucky Horn. There is an animated motion. There is a motion comic. Yeah, it's on. If you go to my website, the one of comics, albaceide.com, yeah, you can find it under the Lucky Horn. Yeah, that I made it with, so the separation of the comic in Photoshop, I did all the cutouts, and then it's in After Effects. I animated in After Effects. And the other comics they don't have, but I do have like a trailer, an animated trailer of Salamanca Blues, which is also available on my website.
Yeah, and I highly encourage you guys to take a look at Alba's website. I put it in the show chat here. And for those of you listening on demand, it'll be in the show notes. Let's talk about the relationship between artist and fans, Alba. I know you attend a lot of these events. What's that relationship like when you meet a fan of your artwork who comes up to your table, comes up to you? What's that experience like?
It's really special. It's very it's very special. It's really touching. Because normally when you start, basically because it's your own work, your own personal work. And normally at the beginning when you start making your drawings, you normally get the feedback from friends. But from friends there is always an emotional attachment. So for example in summer I was tabling in a comic fair, and yeah, there was a few people that they just come to ask if I had something new, and because they bought a previous comics in a previous fair, and they just wanted to see what was my latest comic, and they were having a look, and they were explaining what they like, and it feels really special. It's because that's actually one of the reasons why you're making a comic, while you're putting that much effort for share your ideas with someone else that is gonna give them meaning. And particularly when you see that your stories have touched emotionally someone, that someone likes your characters or gets the theme, that's I don't have words to describe it. It's more than getting paid. It's just the actual reason. So it's very special. Sometimes I found when I finish that comic fair, then yeah, there was someone that also wrote me on social media a message saying, I bought this comic from you in the fair, I just read it, and yeah, and then was just sharing his thoughts about the comic, and that's very unique. I really appreciate all those comments when they come to the table or on social media. It's very nice.
That's awesome. What about the relationship between other artists? What's that like?
That's very important. That's extremely important. That and I highly encourage to anyone making any type of creative projects to find a community and get in touch with other artists. When I started making comics, I didn't know a single soul making them. And it was that I started researching a bit, and I found an event online. It was called Drink and Draw. It was about drawing and posting a drawing in 30 minutes. And I did that, and I started having a few followers, a few other artists. I started checking them, and then I found I had a new follower called Whip Comics, and I thought, what is this? And if I found out that it was this community of comic artists that they were meeting once a month on Zoom online, and then I joined them, and from not knowing anyone, suddenly I was there chatting, interacting with another 20 people or 25 people that they were like me, comic artists. Some they had many comics, some they were starting. It was all sorts of levels, and it's fantastic. That is how I started to understand more about self-publishing, different styles, comic fairs, and start giving and receiving feedback. It's really, really valuable to be in touch with other artists. Same thing as in Spain. I also, now that I go in my city, there is a vibrant comic community, and I'm also in touch with some artists. And it is really important because they give you tips about certain things, sometimes artistic, sometimes about technological aspects, sometimes about how to distribute or promote your work, and you also give the tips and advice. And yeah, very important to have feedback, receive feedback, and give it, give advice to other ones, and build that community of artists.
Alba's got a lot of incredible information and incredible insight. And to learn more about today's guest, Alba Ceide, you can check out her website, which I posted in the chat, or for those of you listening on demand in the show notes. There you can follow all of Alba's socials and more. But since we only have a few more minutes, if you have a question, please post it in the chat. Or if you're shy, please ask her directly after the show, especially if you're looking to get into the comic world. Let me ask you that, Alba. Like, what tips would you give someone who may be a writer or an illustrator looking to break into the comic market?
Yeah, just do it. Don't be stopped or scared of being a complex project, or not having an income with it at the beginning, which is what stopped many artists for starting. Is fantastic. So I will say, yeah, focus, break down the process. So there is the writing, there is the drawing. People may need to see if they need to get a bit more skills on one side or the other. So study the field a bit, and then try to find a bit of a community, other comic fellows. Is gonna help a lot. Try to do a bit of research on the country where you're based. Now on Discord, probably there are many other, same as with Comics or Autobahn in Spain. There are other communities, and that exchange, knowing other artists, is going to help a lot. So yes, so basically I do a bit of research on the field, on the drawing side, and very important, yeah, try to get in touch with other artists.
How did you get your name out there? I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier, but like, do you do any types of self promotion? Do you show your work around?
Well, on social media, I use social media, and then, well, I have my my website to always kind of updated or semi up to date as much as I can. And on social media, yes, at least I think you need to make sure that you are easy to find, or your work is visible, reachable. And yet, so social media, I use Instagram and Twitter, because Twitter is in the UK is quite active for comics. Also because I do some comics activity in there. There's drink and draw events that are happening on Twitter. And then Instagram, so I post a lot my live drawings. Each time that I do one, I normally upload it. And then the work in progress, or some comics, the ones that I can share, I normally upload there some work. And it's, yeah, I think it's very important to share it. In fact, it was by sharing it and having these links visible how the magazine Broken Frontier, which is a UK based magazine about comics, found me and selected me to be one of their 6 to Watch artists in 2022. And yeah, that was very important for to promote further my work. So basically, the 6 to Watch artist is every year they select 6 emerging artists and they kind of push them with with promotion, a bit of mentoring. And it was a very important experience for me, and it was the moment when I decided to really go strong with comics and push my personal work. That was and it was thanks actually to having online a few bits and pieces of my comics so that they could see.
How do you prefer like a reader to experience your work? Do you prefer them to read it digitally online or to hold it in their hand as a printed piece? What do you prefer?
Well, I possibly like my preference will be maybe on paper, but the only reason is because when I'm creating them, I'm kind of creating them thinking about the flipping of the pages. So that's the reason. But having said that, I would leave it up to the reader because I know many people and many people into comics is mostly 100% digital readers. So in fact, I also do read many comics digitally. I don't think it's much of a problem, but it's true that there are some comics that are completely designed to read them on paper. Particularly, just not only the books, but there are many comics that are playing with the actual format of the print. For example, The Lucky Horn is one comic that you can only read on paper because it's actually an unfolding story and an unfolding format. So you really need to have to be touching the paper to interact with it. So there are certain ones that are very specific. The latest one I've done is called A Tall Tale, and it's actually it's a 12-page comic, horizontal pages, but it's folded like a concertina, like an accordion. So it's actually more than 1 meter of paper folded. And it's very important the actual printed format because it's a tall comic, like the actual title, a tall story, a tall tale. So in that case, that one, I think is more enjoyable if it's printed.
I just want to thank you, Abba, for joining us tonight and discussing your incredible career journey. We never have enough time to get into everything, but to keep updated with all of Alba's projects that she's working on, make sure you plug into her site. Take a look at it. It is she's got 2 websites, either albaceide-comics.myportfolio.com or albaceide.myportfolio.com. I posted them in the show chat. They will be in the on-demand show notes. Make sure you connect with her on all of the social media. She's, part of Instagram, Twitter, X, Facebook. She's on Behance, ArtStation. Make sure you connect with her, and especially on Discord. Catch all the latest updates for the next Spotlight sessions and all the great content here in the Adobe Creative Career Discord by following that upcoming events at the top of the server so you can see what's coming next. That about wraps it up, everyone. Thank you again to everyone who tuned in to listen to me, your host, Justin Bamforth, aka JBam. You can always find me on Discord, LinkedIn, or over on my website, justinbamforth.com. Until next time, everyone, take care.
Thank you.
For more conversations with creative professionals, subscribe to the Spotlight Sessions podcast or check out the Adobe Creative Career Discord. Links are posted in the show notes, or visit adobediscord.com and click on Adobe Creative Career.